we got some more news.
Yeah, man. So
what did you want to start off
man,
with?
so we'll go with the NFL. Obviously, the first part of it is the Players Coalition, which I am a part of. Shout out to that. Recently signed a petition where we sent a letter to Congress, and we're basically supporting it's called the Amish-Presley bill, which would effectively end what they call qualified immunity. And qualified immunity, for those that don't know, it is for police officers or government officials, and it protects them in the sense of if they do anything egregious, they don't really have anything to be anyone to hold them accountable. So if you wrongfully died due to some police officer's actions, and I'm your family and I want to sue them and make them be held accountable for that, the only way I can win is if I can prove that he broke an established right of yours in the sense of, well, hey, this has happened before by this officer, or another officer has done something like this and was convicted of it, which is extremely difficult to do. So when you talk about the qualified immunity, getting rid of that will now make it where, hey, I don't have to prove that this has happened before in the past, regardless if it was him or for somebody else. I can just simply get you for the action that you committed, and I can ultimately hold you accountable for that, which is huge because you've seen numerous times why different officers have gotten off when they've done egregious actions, where they've done things that have led to wrongful deaths or people being hurt in extremely, in an extreme way. This gets rid of that. This makes it where now we can get you on that act right there, and we can charge you and we can ultimately sue you in those actions as well. So, I mean, it's a huge, huge step. And when you look at some of the names that are on it, I mean, it's over 1,400 athletes that signed it. And the list ranges, like I said, I'm a part of it. I signed it. Drew Brees, Tom Brady. But then it goes to different sports as well. You look at Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr. I mean, anyone that goes on NFL.com, it's the first article up there. You could click on it and see the full list of names from different executives, coaches, current players, former players across all the major sports. And the thought process behind it being with all the different athletes from all the different sports and all the different parts of it is to silence that narrative of sticking to sports. That's the big thing that we would hear when we first created the Players Coalition. I think we did it in 2017. I want to say this is right when Kaepernick, the kneeling and all that stuff was going on. We had created the Players Coalition, and literally that's the purpose of it. Us coming together, using our power, using our voice to implement change, to have an impact, which I think is huge, man. And when you're looking at what this thing, like I said, what it's trying to do, it's not even a minority thing. This is a everyone thing, man. And it protects everyone from some of the bad police, because we know not all police are bad. We can agree upon that. And we all hear the saying, the whole, one bad apple doesn't ruin the whole bunch. But we want to weed out the bad apples. We want to figure out, how do we do that? We always say, well, you get rid of the bad ones, keep the good ones. How do you do that? This is how you do that.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it a little bit off the mic just because you sent me this article, and I read the article, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of, I don't want to say confused, because I was able to read it and understand it completely. I guess from my standpoint, I didn't know how much impact it had.
Yeah.
And just from talking to you, it seemed like it is. We talk about, everyone's talking and saying things about, hey, we're trying to move in the right direction. But this seems like an actionable thing. And then when you break it down and say, this is kind of how just a regular citizen is being tried or, just held accountable for their actions, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
It just makes common sense. Why isn't it that the way for everyone? Not where government officials or anyone that's working for the government is, I guess held aside from that, where
they have a separate standard. Yeah. Like you said, man, if you go out and you do something where a person is harmed, a person dies from it, excuse me, they're not going to say, hey, well, has anyone else done something similar? Oh, okay. Well, now we can get him. Or has Deke done something similar in the past? Now we can get him for that. No. They're going to look at that action you did, and you're going to be held accountable for that action, period. Not anyone else. We can't say, oh, well, because there isn't a pattern or no one else has done this before, well, now we can't do anything about it. No. So we feel like when it comes to police officers, they need to be held to that same standard. They need to be held accountable in that regard. And it doesn't affect the good officers. If you're a good officer, you're fine. The same way the laws that are there now for me and you as regular citizens, they don't affect us because we're not breaking those laws. It's that simple. But as a people, I don't see why it would be an issue with wanting to get rid of the bad police, the police who cross that line, the police who aren't treating people the way they should be. And like I said, this isn't just solely based on minorities, because you can go down the list of non-minorities that have dealt with the same type of transgressions, the same type of situations. This is the thing that we need to fix just in general. So for me, man, I'm glad that this is something that's going to be pushed to Congress and ultimately, man, taken to the Supreme Court, and hopefully we can get this thing done.
And they do have it where a critique or I guess a sentiment could be, man, what if it goes too far the other way where you're just seeing lawsuits and people bringing up stuff out of nowhere? You were talking whenever we were wrapping off the mic here that they do have some things in place where it's almost common sense on both sides, where it's like this isn't gonna be taken too far to the extremes here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So what you're talking about is in terms of, man, the floodgates are going to be open, right? Everybody's going to be committing wrongful suits against the police department or different police officers, and that's not the case. With the act itself proposes is that, hey, if there isn't any evidence to back the claim, the judges can throw it out. They don't even have to see it. But at the same time, if you're coming in here and you're wasting everybody's time and money trying to come up with something that wasn't even egregious and try to sue, well, then, yeah, you'll be held responsible. And then ultimately you'll be paying the lawyer fees for that whole situation. So I think that that's important to hold both sides accountable. So that way somebody's not trying to take advantage of this situation as well. And when you're talking about the police officer themselves, they're not even from a financial standpoint going to be held responsible in terms of having to provide their own counsel to represent them, because as police officers, anytime a police officer has to go to court for anything, the state pays for it in that regard. So I don't really see the issue in that sense. I think this is going to be a good thing going forward if everything gets passed the way it should be passed. But this is a huge step in. Just to make things clear too, this is on a federal level, and this is for the Players Coalition. This is the one-off where we're like, let's focus on this right now at this level. But the rest of the things that we have coming up in the future, we'll focus on the local and state level, because when you look at the amount of people being arrested, the impact, it's mainly at that local and state level. I mean, unless you are doing some high scale major crimes, you're hardly ever at the federal level. You're going to be state and local. So that's what we're focusing on. The next, where the majority of our focus will continue to be on, is educating the police departments, educating the citizens as well, in terms of that communication back and forth, how to go about these different situations, the policing policies, the different things that are being taught. That's going to be something else that we're going to be looking into, man. So this is, like I said, the first step in a long journey, but I think it's a huge step, and it's great to see the amount of people supporting it from across the different sports, man, and from different backgrounds too. When you look at the list, as you said, man, you look at the list, it's people, I mean, current guys, retired guys from all over there. You're just like, dude, this is crazy, but that's why everybody can get along with it, because it's not making it a black versus white thing. It's making it bad police officers need to get out thing. And I think that's huge.
No, yeah, I'm glad that you brought it to my attention, because like I said at the beginning, I would have had no clue about this at all, and, what it meant and what type of impact it was having. So I'm glad we talked about it. You broke it down for me. It's definitely an interesting topic, and I'm glad action is being taken, and we're all trying to move in the right direction. Like you said, it's not really a race thing. It's just, all right, how can we do some action? How can we make this society, America, a better place? So
absolutely, man. And like you said, that's from the Players Coalition side of it. But the NFL, they're also taking action. We saw when Roger Goodell made a statement. And for a lot of us that were around when the whole Kaepernick situation was happening, we weren't necessarily fond of, Goodell's statement, just because it came off as kind of a little bit too late or not enough, just because we remember how some of those meetings went and some of the conversations that were being had during that time. But what the NFL is doing, they just created the NFL social justice funding and grant opportunities. And essentially what they're going to be doing for current and former players, from the NFL standpoint, they'll match up to $5,000 of any donation you make to any of the 501c3s that are focusing on social justice, whether it's education, criminal justice reform, community and police relations, poverty, racial equality, and workforce and economic development. So they'll match up to $5,000 for any current or former player making donations to organizations in that department. But then to take it a step further, each club will match up to $250,000 in donations as well for any of their current or former players. So when you're talking about the amount of players that have played in the NFL, the amount of players, both, like I said, current and retired, that's big time money that we're talking about when you're looking at the amount of guys that could hop into this and really start to get more involved, which we hope. Which we definitely hope. So for me, man, I was definitely proud to see the NFL taking action in that regard, because we're past the point of talking. It's more so now, what are you going to do to implement that impact, to implement that impact and to implement change? And these are some of the things that are being taken place.
Yeah, that's dope, man.